3 bone-chilling true trucker horror stories that haunt your midnight drive forever. As the clock struck midnight, a solitary truck rumbled down the empty highway, its headlights slicing through the thick fog like knives. Legends whispered of this stretch of road, a haunting presence watching from the shadows, awaiting its next victim. Smoky tendrils curled around the ghostly outlines of ancient trees, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Every mile felt steeped in dread, an invisible weight settling in the chest of every driver foolish enough to tread the haunted asphalt. The first strange element revealed itself on that fateful night. An eerie figure flickered in the rearview mirror. A woman in a tattered white dress, her hair wild as if it had never felt a comb. One moment she was there, the next, vanished like smoke. The trucker's heart slammed against his ribs, panic flaring in his chest. Was it exhaustion playing tricks? Or had the road claimed yet another lost soul? There were tales, whispered over campfires and late-night snacks, of phantom hitchhikers that led drivers to their doom. Tension escalated as he pressed on, adrenaline roaring in his ears. The radio crackled, static sharply juxtaposed against the silence of the darkened road. "Get out while you can," a voice warned, sending icy chills racing down his spine. Goosebumps erupted on his skin, nerves tingling with an instinctive fear. Was it the lack of sleep, or did the dead really speak? An unsettling sense of being watched washed over him, the biting cold of unseen eyes peering from the depths of the forest. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Suddenly, the truck's headlights illuminated the silhouette of a deer, its eyes reflecting like 2 tiny orbs of fire. He slammed on the brakes, heart racing as the creature froze, rooted to the spot. Yet, what drew his attention wasn't the deer. No, behind it loomed an abandoned gas station, its facade peeling and rotting, flickering neon lights casting a ghastly hue. It felt too wrong, so wrong, like a portal open to somewhere terrible. A shiver gripped him. Had anyone ventured inside? What had they found? He glanced at the passenger seat, hope flickering that maybe he wasn't entirely alone. But trust was hard to come by when the air tasted thick with ghost stories. The looming darkness felt tangible, squeezing the air from his lungs. As he glanced back at the gas station, a figure appeared in the doorway, a shadow, beckoning him. The driver gulped. Should he stop? Was it worth the risk? No sooner had he considered it when a deafening crash echoed behind him, rattling the very bones of the truck. Questions flooded his mind. What was lurking in the night? And would he survive to tell the tale? He twisted the steering wheel, his heart pounding like a war drum. The echo of the crash faded but hadn't vanished. It loomed behind him, shadowy and ominous. A slow chill spread through him, as if the reality of that abandoned gas station dripped into the cab, filling his lungs with ice. Don't look back, he whispered to himself, but curiosity had its claws deep. The gas station called him with an unspeakable draw. The question thudded in his chest. What if something needed help? Gritting his teeth, he edged closer. The shadow in the doorway now flickered in and out of existence, its movements ghostly, as if unsure whether to reveal itself or vanish entirely. A flicker of light caught his eye again. Was it just the dying neon? Or was it a signal? The truck's engine growled beneath him as he inched toward the lot. The darkness swirled like a living entity, seeking to swallow him whole. The gas station's peeling exterior was riddled with the scars of time. Where had the people gone? Why was no one here to pump gas, to greet him? Questions wrapped around him, squeezing tighter than his seatbelt. The figure stepped forward, revealing a gaunt face with hollow eyes. It wore the same tattered dress, but this time, there was no mistaking it was human or once had been. Was it her? The woman from his rearview? His blood ran cold. Goosebumps prickled his skin, every instinct screaming to run, to get far away from this nightmare. As he hesitated, the figure lifted a finger, pointing toward the cracked glass door. "Help!" it whispered, the sound barely audible over the rumbling engine. A shudder rippled through him. The voice had the unmistakable echo of despair, the kind that haunted the souls of the lost. It was a plea for salvation, but wrapped in an unsettling dread. The air grew thick, charged with the weight of 1,000 unspoken horrors. "What do you want?" he shouted, throat dry, eyes wide. The figure twitched, jerking backward into the shadows. "Help!" it lured again, mingling into the breeze, soft but insistent, like a forgotten memory insisting on being remembered. Against all advice, he turned off the truck, the roar of the engine fading into silence. The darkness seemed to close in, wrapping around him like an embrace, but it was just deception. Tightening, stifling. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the truck, heart thumping in his ears. The ground crunched beneath his boots, each step unsettlingly loud in the oppressive quiet. When he reached the fated door, he hesitated. What if he found something monstrous inside? The door creaked open, revealing an interior cloaked in shadows. Old, dusty shelves lined with forgotten products whispered secrets of the past. But the real horror sank its teeth into him when he caught sight of vague shapes lurking deeper, shifting out of sight. Were they merely illusions dancing in the half-light? Or were they ghosts hovering on the edge of existence? As his eyes adjusted, he stepped further inside, and the door slammed shut behind him with a thunderous bang. Grotesque laughter erupted from the back room, a sound so deeply unsettling, so foreign, it clawed at the edges of his sanity. He spun around, but the door was solid, moonlight dimming to black sky, swallowing all signs of escape. In that moment, he realized what awaited him inside might not be salvation at all. With dread clawing at his throat, he pressed forward. What secrets did the gas station hold? And would he emerge with his life intact, or would the road claim yet another hapless traveler? There was no turning back now. As he ventured deeper, an unquenchable darkness flickered at the edge of his vision, whispering promises of terror and revelation. What awaited beyond the door's threshold? The shadows stirred, and the laughter grew louder, swirling around him like a storm. Was he still alive, or had he already become another phantom? There was only one way to find out. The stench of decay hit him first. It invaded every crevice of his being, a noxious mix of old gasoline and something far worse. He staggered back, hands flying to cover his nose, but the darkness pressed in farther, urging him to move forward. The laughter faded, replaced by a low hum, almost melodic, thrumming just beneath the surface of what reality he had left. "Help!" echoed softly, the voice once again wrapping around him like a chilling fog. But this time, it was accompanied by something else, a rustling noise, tentative footsteps emerging from the shadows. His heart raced as he peered into the gloom, attempting to decipher the outlines of twisted metal and hunched figures that seemed to undulate with the shadows cast by his fading instincts. "Don't," he urged himself. "Just turn around and leave." But human compassion had a way of ensnaring him when fear chased his heels. He took a cautious step deeper into the gas station, feeling each moment stretch and warp, time slipping through his fingers like sand. Suddenly, the hum crescendoed into a frantic screech, the source darting into view, a small child, eyes wide with terror, dirt smudged across his cheeks. He wore a faded shirt that hung loosely on his frail body. "Help! They're coming!" the child cried, voice trembling, echoing the same desperation that had called him in. A ripple of panic surged through him. "Who is coming?" he managed to say, his throat dry, every instinct screaming danger, yet his feet remained rooted to the spot. But before the boy could answer, a chilling wind swept through the room, and shadows flickered ominously against the peeling walls. Shapes emerged, twisted, grotesque forms with sunken eyes and crooked smiles, their laughter now a cacophony of horror. The air grew thick with tension, the child's face paled as the figures began to close in. He backed up instinctively, bumping against a rickety shelf filled with years of dust and despair, watching as the figures advanced, their limbs stretching and contorting like marionettes controlled by unseen hands. "Run!" the boy screamed. Panic surged through his veins. He shouldn't have come here. He should have never turned off the engine. In one horrifying moment, the door behind him lost its solidity, warped and twisted as if taunting his desperate need to escape. He bolted, pushing past the boy, his heart racing faster than his feet could carry him. The specters lunged, reaching for him, fingers like claws tearing at the air, hungry for warmth, for life. "Wait!" the child called, his small voice barely breaking through the chaos. "You have to help them." But there was no time. Adrenaline surged, eclipsing all thought. He barreled toward the back room, hoping to find a way through the nightmare that gripped him in icy tendrils. The shadows swirled like a storm cloud, ominously alive, ready to swallow him whole. He stumbled into a vast, dark space, a chill crawling up his spine as he felt the weight of desolation closing in. Strange machines lay covered in dust, tools that had once served a purpose now shrouded in decay, whispering forgotten tales of lost lives. "Help!" he cried, more to himself than anyone else, grasping for any shred of sanity as the darkness thickened around him. Suddenly, a light flickered at the far end. Hope sparked within him. He sprinted toward it, each pulse of his heart mingling with the distant shadows that clawed and reached. Just as he reached the glow, a figure emerged tall and menacing, blocking his path. "What do you really want?" it rasped, an echo of voices rising from the churning shadows swirling beyond. With each word, they came closer, their laughter ringing in his ears like death tolls. And within that moment he knew, the question was not about salvation, but the price of it. As he faced that looming figure, the child's words echoed in his mind, "You have to help them." Was he ready to face the truth that he might not be the one needing help after all? The shadows twisted around him, and with a sudden flash of clarity, he realized that the game was only just beginning. What dark fate awaited him in the haunted gas station? The air shivered with the chilling promise of revelations yet unseen. The figure loomed over him, its features obscured by darkness, yet somehow he felt its eyes piercing him, seeing straight through to every fear and regret he held tightly within. It emitted a soft chuckle, a sound that sent ripples of dread down his spine. He took a wary step back, readying himself for what felt like a long, cold road to nowhere. "Do you think you can save them?" the figure crooned, each word dripping with mockery. How noble, yet so foolish. Behind him, the shadows seemed to surge and writhe, drawn to him like moths to a flame. He could almost sense the lives tethered to that darkness, lost, forgotten souls trapped in an endless loop of despair. Each flickering shadow whispered a story of tragedy, and their voices combined into a terrifying symphony that filled the gas station's musty air. "No," he muttered, shaking his head, trying to stave off an encroaching panic. "This can't be happening. I need to get out of here." But the figure moved, blocking the light, suffocating the hope he had just felt. The edges of the room seemed to warp, and he realized with a sickening jolt that the very space around him was altering, tightening like a vice. "Do you feel their pain?" the figure asked, voice dripping with cruel delight. In an unexpected moment of empathy, he thought of the child, the one who had pleaded for his help. The innocence in those wide, frightened eyes stirred something within him. Would he abandon the boy to whatever dark fate awaited? What happened to them? He managed to ask, desperate to hold on to the slightest thread of humanity in this surreal nightmare. "They are the forsaken, just like you," the figure rasped, a smirk curling its lips. "You can join them, or you can try to save them. But my dear friend, help comes at a cost." He gulped, the burning sensation of fear twisting in his stomach. "What kind of cost?" "Your own light," it said almost casually, as if discussing the weather. "You will lose your way, your reason, but isn't it worth it to save the innocent? Is their pain not worth the darkness that will swallow you?" The shadows pulsed with energy, reaching for him with a desperate hunger. He could almost feel the chill of their despair lapping at his heels. The gas station, once a mere pit stop on a forgotten road, had turned into a catacomb of choices, an abyss of desperation where each whisper from the darkness begged for his surrender. Out of the corner of his eye, the child reappeared, peeking from behind a tremulous shadow. "You have to help us," the boy cried, his voice tinged with fear and loss. "Run!" he shouted back, shaking off the grasp of the haunting figure, every instinct now focused on saving the boy. But the children's cries mingled with the figure's laughter, creating a dissonance that weighed heavily on his heart. "No," he whispered defiantly. "I want to let this darkness win." With newfound determination surging through him, he lunged towards the light again, fighting against the grip of darkness that threatened to consume him whole. He had to break free, had to shield the boy from the fate that lurked in the shadows, yet, just as he reached for the glow, a hand the same crooked, claw-like appendage that had threatened him moments ago snaked around his wrist and held him fast. "Do you really believe you can escape?" it hissed, twisting shadows coiling around him like chains, as he struggled against its grasp. His heart pounded as the specters gathered closer, the air thickening with their chilling wails. In that instant, he understood the weight of choice, the risk of sacrificial love against the pull of his own survival. Could one fragile life be enough to shatter the darkness that sought to encase him? The answer felt ripe with uncertainty, as the child's face was swallowed by the gloom. The game had changed, and the stakes had risen. A fragile thread of hope hung in the balance, waiting for him to pull it taut. With the shadows howling around him, he lunged again, aware that he might just be plunging deeper into the darkness, or finally stepping toward the light, but who would emerge on the other side? He felt the icy clutches of despair tighten around him, each shadow a reminder of those lost in the dark, and with each pulse of their collective agony, his resolve wavered. He couldn't breathe. The weight of the shadows pressed down like lead, pushing him closer to surrender. "No!" he screamed, tearing against the grip that held him captive. The child's terrified face swirled in his mind, urging him forward, urging him to break free. If he failed, if he couldn't save them, what would his life matter? "Your heart is too bright for this darkness," the figure taunted, its voice thrumming with excitement like a puppet master toying with a string. "But every light can be extinguished, it just takes the right moment." Adrenaline surged through him, igniting a fierce flame of defiance. "I refuse," he shot back, forcing his eyes to meet the chilling gaze of the thing, not a creature, but an embodiment of the darkness that feasted on fear. As if fueled by his words, the shadows flowed like a tempest around him, sinister tendrils writhing and snapping at his ankles. He took a step back instinctively, but glanced again at the boy. If he lost focus now, it would all be over. Suddenly, a surge of memory flickered in his mind. Faces of those he loved flooded in, laughter mixed with moments of warmth. They were his light, his purpose. But would that be enough to fight back the encroaching dark? He thought of their smiles, and for a split second, he felt hope bloom in his chest. "Just a little more," he whispered to himself, his voice cracking with emotion. "For them." With a burst of resolve, he yanked his arm free, the chains of shadow loosening for a moment. The child was waiting, eyes wide with desperation, and instinctively, he reached out toward that beacon of innocence. But the figure was relentless. "Your struggle only deepens the pit of despair," it bellowed, a rush of shadows amplifying its rage. The surrounding darkness trembled as if it too sensed the tension rising. Another pulse of desperation surged through him. What if this was the moment the shadows would finally consume him? He closed his eyes and summoned every ounce of strength he had left. "I won't abandon you," he shouted, letting the power of his promise escape into the chaos, sending shockwaves through the blackness. He felt the air shimmer, and the shadows recoiled slightly in the wake of his declaration. Suddenly, the boy dashed toward him. Light glimmered from behind, illuminating the outline of hope in the thick murk. They barely locked eyes before a resounding crash filled the air. A window shattered nearby, letting in the flicker of dawn. Was it real? But everything faded momentarily, the darkness visibly recoiled at the light's approach. Fueled by courage and desperation, he took a step toward the boy. "We can escape together." The child's form solidified, tugging at his hands. "Hurry! Before it's too late." The specters howled, and the shadows surged once again, clawing greedily for both of them. Time slowed as they began to break through the thick veil of darkness. Dust motes danced in the awakening light, the chilling laugh of the figure faintly echoing behind them. Just as freedom felt tangible, he felt a tug at his heart, a pain that whispered of sacrifice. Could he keep the boy safe without losing himself? His heart raced wildly, uncertainty clawing at him. They were close, but danger still lurked in the air like a dark cloud, the figure's voice lingering ominously. "Run faster!" he shouted, urgency flooding his veins, but in that instant, something shifted. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, and he realized they were standing on the threshold between light and dark. What would happen if he fell? Would he be lost forever? Every instinct screamed at him as he felt the claws of shadow graze his back, pulling him toward the abyss. The boy was ahead, but could he risk it? With a heart full of dread and hope, he made his choice. "I will save you." But repaying that promise might cost him everything. And just like that, he took the final step, plunging into the unknown. Would they find safety or be lost in the dark forever? The moment they fell, the air thickened, electrified with an energy that rattled his bones. Time twisted around them, bending into an eerie silence that swallowed their screams. He clutched the boy tightly, every ounce of his being screaming to hold on. Their descent felt endless, an abyss of despair that threatened to swallow the flicker of hope he had fought so hard to grasp. Then, just as suddenly, they landed. The impact jolted through him like lightning, a sharp pain radiating from his spine as he tumbled onto gritty ground. He blinked against the dark, feeling the weight of shadows pressing down like a cold shroud. At first, he could see nothing, only darkness closing in around them. Panic raced in his chest, a wild stallion that would not be tamed. "Are you okay?" he gasped, quickly turning to the boy. "I'm here," the child whispered, his voice a quivering shadow of itself. Relief flooded through him, but it was short-lived. The darkness felt alive, swirling around them as if sentient. It pulsed with malicious intent. A nascent glow appeared ahead, pulsing like a heartbeat, a stark contrast against the oppressive black. Without thinking, he grabbed the boy's hand and rushed toward it, adrenaline sharpening his senses. Each step felt precarious, as if the ground beneath them would crumble away at any moment. "Stay close," he urged, glancing back to see the shadows writhe, reaching out like clawed fingers desperate to reclaim them. They reached the light, and what lay beyond shocked him to his core. It was a cavern, walls slick with moisture, dripping like a heartbeat. The glow emanated from luminous fungi, casting a ghostly radiance that painted the stone in shades of ethereal blue and green. Breathless, he took in the surroundings. Strange symbols adorned the walls, cryptic messages that spoke to him from another world. But there was no time to ponder their meaning. A rumble echoed through the cave, shaking the very ground beneath them. "Do you hear that?" the boy asked, fear creeping into his bright eyes. "Yes, we need to move," he replied sharply. They darted further into the cavern, deeper into the radiant glow, but suddenly, the warmth of the light felt like it was escaping, the shadows sneaking closer. An urgent whisper sliced through the air, chilling him to the bone. "You can't escape. You belong to me now." The figure materialized, half-formed, shadows swirling around it, a grotesque mockery of itself. It twisted and writhed, feeding off their fear, its voice a sinister melody that wrapped around him like a vice. "No!" he shouted, trying to stand his ground as bile rose in his throat. "I want to let you take us." The figure chuckled, a sound that echoed with torment, reverberating through the cavern. "You and your precious light cannot last forever in my realm," it hissed. "All will be consumed." Just then, the eyes of the shadows glimmered ominously, and he felt the boy tugging insistently at his sleeve, whispering, "We have to run." He obeyed instinctually, shoving his fear down and sprinting toward the cavern's entrance. The shadows lashed out, like 1,000 angry serpents, snagging at his clothes. But they couldn't catch him, not now. With each stride, he poured every ounce of will into protecting the boy. They risked everything, life or death, in hopes of escaping the darkness. A flicker of light bounced off the walls, igniting hope in his chest. "See, Mon!" he yelled, his voice a beacon. But as they reached the exit, a screech erupted from the figure, a sound that pierced the very air, bombarding them with a wave of despair that threatened to collapse the walls around them. "Leave the child!" it roared, sending vibrations through the stone. "And I may spare you." Something inside him twisted painfully. Could he truly forsake the boy? His heart was a battlefield as he grappled with the choice before him. "No!" he shouted back, grounding himself. "We will not be separated." But before he could move, the ground began to shake violently. The cavern walls warped, shadows coiling around him, whispering promises of safety in exchange for surrender. What would happen if he refused? In that moment, he felt the shadows pulling away as he reached for the light. He made his choice, ready to confront the darkness or whatever came next in this relentless journey. Their fates intertwined, they plunged forward, hell-bent on defying the shadow. But would his defiance seal their doom, or lead them to salvation? The ground trembled with an ominous fury as they burst out of the cavern. Daylight hit them like a wave, but the brightness almost stung. He clutched the boy's hand tighter, scanning the desolate landscape that stretched before them. No signs of life, just cracked earth and twisted roots clawing at the sky. It felt as if the world had forgotten about them. "Where are we?" The boy's voice trembled, a whisper lost in the eerie stillness. Not sure. He tried to sound soothing, his throat was dry, each word tasted like sandpaper. Suddenly, the shadows from the cavern slithered out behind them, pooling across the ground like ink spilled from a shattered bottle. He spun around, ready to shield the boy. "We need to go," he urged, adrenaline kicking in again. It felt like they were being hunted. They sprinted toward what looked like the outline of a forest in the distance, a slight refuge from the creeping darkness. With every step, the shadow's whispers grew louder, curling around his mind. "You cannot escape, just give in." A chill crept up his spine. Somewhere deep inside, he knew they couldn't stop running. He cast a sideways glance at the boy, who was lagging behind, his small legs struggling to keep pace. The fear in the child's eyes pierced his heart. "Keep up. I won't let anything take you," he yelled with as much encouragement as he could muster. "Just a bit further." They vanished into the trees, the thick trunks closing in like prison bars. The canopy loomed overhead, casting dark shadows across the forest floor. Each step felt heavy, the soil was soft, sucking at their shoes like hands desperate to pull them under. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood a massive, gnarled tree. Its branches twisted like skeletal fingers reaching into the heavens. But there was something more, something not right. A circle of stones surrounded the base, etched with the same cryptic symbols they had seen back in the cavern. "Look!" The boy pointed with a mix of awe and fear. He hesitated, heart pounding. "We shouldn't be here." But something drew him closer. The air crackled around the tree, charged with a strange energy that hummed in his bones. As they approached, the shadows caught up, materializing into the grotesque figure from the cavern. Its eyes glowed with a hungry malice. "You thought escaping was enough?" it jeered, voice slithering through the air like smoke. "You've entered my domain." "No." He stepped in front of the boy, bracing himself. "We want to be your playthings." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that vibrated through the clearing. "You've made a grave mistake. This tree binds all who defy me. You are part of this now." Shadows crawled around the gnarled roots, creeping toward them like sentient tendrils, panic surged through him, a desperate need to protect the child. We can't let it win. With a surge of determination, he reached for the boy's hand. We have to fight. Together. They stood firm against the advancing shadows, their combined courage flickering like a candle amidst a storm. With a sudden burst of instinct, he yanked the boy behind him and shouted, "We claim our freedom." The moment felt electric. Light exploded from their intertwined hands, bathing the clearing in a brilliant glow. The figure recoiled, hissing as the shadows shrank back, momentarily stunned, but it wasn't over. Foolish mortals. It shrieked, the rage boiling beneath its twisted surface. You cannot resist forever. My darkness will consume you all. In that moment, armed with the strength of their bond, they could either finish this or be drawn deeper into despair, but could they truly defeat the shadow that loomed so large, or would they have to pay a heavier price than they knew to reclaim their light? As the figure lunged forward again, the light flickered, teetering on the edge of despair. The figure lunged, shadows spilling like a waterfall, wrapping around him and the boy. He braced himself, feeling the cold tendrils grasping at his ankles, drawing him down. The light they conjured flickered like a dying candle, struggling against the overwhelming darkness. Hold on. He shouted, the boy's grip tightening in response. With every ounce of strength and love, he concentrated on the light. Together. He urged, willing the boy to feel the power coursing through their connection. Eyes wide, the boy nodded, determination replacing fear, the glow pulsed again, pushing back against the darkness. He felt heat radiating from their clasped hands, igniting a fire in his bones that he didn't know existed. The shadows hissed, retreating just enough for a sliver of hope to drive deeper. Not so powerful now, are you? He spat into the void, channeling all of his rage and despair into the words. He could feel it, the balance shifting. The shadows writhed, screeching as if touched by fire. But their triumph was short-lived. The figures snarled and twisted into grotesque shapes, warping into phantoms of everything he had tried to forget: loss, failure, and grief. Memories clawed at him, filled with the faces he had lost. Each shadow held a fragment of his past, taunting him with twisted smiles. You think you're special? The dark figure roared, the shadows swirling faster around them. You're just another tragedy waiting to happen. The boy whimpered, make it go away. Listen to me, he said urgently, squeezing the child's hand. This darkness feeds on our fear. We have to believe we can fight it. He looked deep into the boy's eyes. In that gaze, he saw trust and unwavering faith. They were in this together, they were a team. No matter what, I won't let it take you. This is our fight. The boy echoed, his voice stronger than before. The light brightened, filling the clearing as they stood united, pockets of shadow trying in vain to push against their shimmering bond. The gnarled roots beneath them began to crack, splitting open as if the earth itself was rebelling against the darkness. Your connection is weak. The figure shrieked, its voice trembling with frustration. You know despair is more powerful than hope. But something stirred within him, a truth that had paralyzed him for too long. He had faced despair before. Each time, he had chosen to rise again. We are stronger together. He shouted, pushing the words out as if they were a weapon. Suddenly, the ground beneath the stones erupted, the shadows screeching like a banshee thrown into panic. Light blossomed like a supernova, engulfing the area as it countered the darkness. Heed our call. He cried. The light surged from their hands, a golden wave sweeping through the clearing, engulfing the shadowy figure and pushing it back. But just when it seemed like they had gained the upper hand, the air crackled with a new energy, darker than before. A deeper shadow emerged, twisting the light into grotesque shapes, and suddenly they were surrounded by a vortex of darkness, swirling like a tempest. No! We cannot be defeated! He shouted, desperation crawling into his throat. But the shadows were relentless, feeding on their fear. He turned to the boy, heart racing. What if I hold on? What if I sacrifice everything to protect you? The pain of that thought gripped him. Suddenly, the boy's small face was lit with fierce determination. No, we don't need to sacrifice. We just need to trust. Don't stop believing. The figure cackled, its voice filling the air with dread. Believe all you want. It will not save you. He looked at the boy. There was no time left. The bond they had created was flickering, teetering against the onslaught of shadows closing in. Fight. Fight with me. But beneath it all, a sinking dread filled him. What if they couldn't hold on? What if the shadows consumed them both? As the darkness closed in, the clearing buzzing with tension and fear, he knew their final stand was upon them. They had to decide, could they truly defy the darkness, or would this be the moment everything changed? Forever? And just before the shadows struck, a chilling voice echoed behind them, saying, "The true horror is yet to come." The darkness tightened its grip, a cold embrace swallowing the light. For a moment, all he felt was a suffocating weight pushing down on him, snuffing out the flicker of hope they had managed to kindle. Panic surged as the voice echoed, deeper and more sinister than before. The true horror is yet to come. It reverberated through the clearing, distorting reality, sending shivers crawling up his spine. He glanced at the boy, whose eyes reflected fear but also an ember of defiance. "Stay close," he yelled, pulling the boy in. They were each other's only anchor in this abyss of shadows. As the last remnants of their light flickered, the ground beneath them trembled, splitting wide, revealing a chasm, a swirling pit of darkness that seemed to breathe, exhaling dread. He could feel the pull, a visceral urge to surrender to whatever lay below. "We can't let it take us." He fought the urge to step forward, the corruption calling out with promises of peace laced with despair. Suddenly, the wind howled, the vortex above them spiraling faster, howling like hungry wolves. From its depths, pale specters rose, wispy forms that drifted toward them, each one a distorted reflection of everything he had lost. They whispered his name, their voices mixing with the wind to create a terrifying cacophony. "Remember us?" they murmured. "You failed us. You let us go." "No!" he screamed, shaking his head to dispel the haunting allure. The boy clung to his side, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. "Dad!" the boy cried, his voice quaking, drawing his attention. He remembered why they were fighting. They were fighting for every moment they had together, every joy and laugh still to be shared. "Look at me," he commanded, squeezing the boy's shoulder, searching deep into his eyes. "We are stronger than these shadows. They can't take our love." The boy nodded, steadying himself. Together. With that bond in mind, he reached out, searching for the remnants of their light. He could feel it stirring, a flicker of warmth in the chilling atmosphere. Energy surged through him, fueled by love, memories, the indomitable will to protect. He raised his hand high, palm outwards, the first tendrils of light broke free, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The light sparkled, breaking the gloom like stars piercing through a night sky. "Come on," he urged. "Fight back. Remember our moments." The boy closed his eyes, drawing strength from those memories. Light began to ripple from their joined palms, expanding, illuminating the space around them. The shadows shrieked in outrage, twisting and writhing as if trying to escape the searing brightness, but the deeper shadow, the one that had whispered of horrors to come, screamed louder than ever, drowning out their efforts. "You think you can defy the darkness?" it bellowed. "You'll only awaken worse nightmares." The ground quaked violently, the chasm enlarging, and the entities began to converge, a suffocating swarm. Each breath was filled with despair, yet the light they created fought to be more than just a flicker, it battled to become a blaze. "No! We want to be a part of your nightmare," he shouted defiantly, throwing everything they had into their shimmering shield. For a second, it felt like they were breaking through, magnitudes of light pushing against despair's stranglehold. Then an ear-piercing howl erupted, and the abyss responded, sucking all warmth from the air. He staggered back, knees trembling, but he refused to fall. The boy's grip was sure, unyielding amid the chaos, but then a shadowy hand breached their light, clawing toward the boy. The wave of despair washed over him, chilling his bones. No! Not him. Anyone but him. He roared with a primal anguish, every ounce of fear and panic ricocheting within him. Time stretched, the fabric of their reality fraying, as he fought with everything inside him. He couldn't let the boy, his hope, become another casualty of this darkness, and just as he felt their bond slipping, when all hope seemed lost, a figure loomed behind the swirling shadows. A familiar face, twisted and ghastly, came forth, eyes void of sanity. "Remember me?" It sneered, lips stretching into a sickening grin that it was someone he had thought long gone, a ghost come to reclaim, to unravel everything they had built. The air crackled with fear, the shadows hungered, but why did this horror feel so personal? "Run!" he shouted, fear coursing through him. But the boy stood firm, torn between terror and loyalty. The darkness awaited, hungry and relentless, ready to consume them. And now, a new horror was poised to strike. What awaited them in the darkness? Was this truly the end, or just the beginning of something much worse? With an anguished roar, he lunged forward, pushing the boy behind him as time and terror twisted in one appalling moment. The familiar face disfigured, empty advanced, darkness swirling with its every taunting breath. "You thought you could escape?" it whispered, voice silk wrapped in chains. "No!" he gasped, refusing to believe. This specter was a ghost from his worst days, a remnant of everything he had tried to leave behind. But there was no time to dwell on it now. They were cornered, shadows pressing in like a vice, bristling with hunger, a cacophony calling for their surrender. "Dad!" The boy's voice rang clear, cutting through the clutter of fear. The purity in the word grounded him. He turned to see the child's face, a portrait of bravery, confusion, and fierce loyalty. "I want to leave you," the boy declared, his own light flickering brighter as if its core was bolstered by hope. The darkness writhed around them, desperate to extinguish that light. "You will fail," the taunting specter echoed, "don't you see? Your bond cannot withstand this power." But instead of letting despair swallow him, he gripped the boy's hand tighter, grounding himself in the truth of their connection. Together, he echoed fiercely. They had fought through hell, they would face this horror united. He closed his eyes, focusing on memories of laughter, shared moments, and love, drawing light from those joys. "Do you feel it?" he whispered to the boy. "We are strong. We will fight." "Yes." The boy shouted back, determination melting away the shadows clawing at their feet. The stirring warmth of shared love unfurled between them, blooming like a flower breaking through the concrete. With all his might, he thrust their joined hands toward the specter. "You've taken enough from us. Your reign ends here." Light pulsated as it surged from their fingertips, bright and blinding, illuminating the darkness around them. It tore through the grotesque form, each pulse imbued with their collective courage. "No! You cannot!" The figure screeched, twisting and distorting in horror, the shadows recoiling as if burned. Amidst the turmoil, the whispers of the forsaken entities clawed for recognition, vengeful cries echoing through the air. But his heart was steady now. "You cannot take what you haven't created," he boomed, rooted in the moment. "We are the light. We will not be your puppets." As they poured every ounce of love and defiance into their one shared pulse of brilliance, the darkness fractured like glass reflected in flames. A resounding crack flared through the air, echoing with finality as the shadowy figure contorted, losing its grip. The abyss beneath them gaped wide, swirling with confusion, shadows retreating, clashing as their own power unfolded around him and the boy. Then, with an earth-shattering roar, everything erupted in a burst of light. The shadows screamed as brilliant waves of energy cascaded outward, engulfing everything. He held the boy close, bracing for impact as light banished the darkness, engulfing every inch of their existence. Time held its breath, the assurance of survival heavy in the air. The pounding ceased. A dizzying stillness embraced them, and with a gasp, they fell forward into warmth. He blinked against the light, breath caught in his throat. They were standing outside, the solid ground beneath their feet. The darkness that had chased them vanished like vapor, swirling into the ether, leaving behind only the kiss of the new dawn filtering through the trees. "Are we free?" The boy's hopeful voice broke the silence, trembling on the edge of awe. He turned to the boy, enveloped in heavy emotion. "Yes," he said, voice steady though his heart raced with the realization. They had triumphed. They had defied the darkness together. The earlier chill melted away into the comforting embrace of sunlight filtering through the leaves. "Where do we go now?" the boy asked, his eyes sparkling with wonder. He knelt down, pulling the boy into a hug, relief flooding through him. "Wherever we want," he answered, the tightness in his chest easing. "Together, anything's possible." A quiet joy echoed in the air around them. The world seemed new, washed in light, ready to be embraced. They stepped forward together, hand in hand, the remnants of shadows turning to ash behind them, finally free to forge their own path without the grip of terror. They laughed, each sound swelling with unbroken resilience, leading them into an uncertain future bursting with promise, a testament to their journey, their survival. They would carry the light they had fought for, a beacon in the eternal dark. And as the horizon stretched before them, a new day gleamed, a journey unexplored, hands interlocked, hearts free, an unbreakable bond echoing louder than the whispers of the past. This is where their life began anew, filled with hope and light, lessons learned, strength ignited. But as they walked into that shimmering dawn, the world behind them faded to silence. Somewhere, deep in the shadows, a sinister laugh lingered, slinking back into the dark, waiting for another chance to rise again, but they wouldn't be lost. They had survived the darkest night, and together they could face whatever lay ahead. So, now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button to feed the algorithm and keep these tales flowing. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support. This is the moment to stand up for the community and keep the spirit alive.